Hello and a very good morning. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Let's begin with this morning's headlines. Nationwide strike by central unions over government's proposed labour reform. Centre says essential commodities won't be hit. Big boost to investors. Government decides no retrospective minimum alternate tax on capital gains made by FIIs. Flood situation in Assam, grim. Brahmaputra and tributaries in spate. Threat of deluge at Kaziranga National Park. Nearly 8 lakh people affected throughout the state. EU's migrant crisis escalates. Hundreds stranded in the Hungarian capital Budapest as country bars them from travelling through EU. And a big moment for the men in blue. Virat Kohli leads India to a test series win in Sri Lanka for the first time in 22 years. Well, a nationwide strike has been called by central trade unions today against the government's proposed labour reforms. The government's request to call off the strike went unheeded after the meeting with the ministers recently failed to make any headway. The unions gave a 12-point charter of demands that includes mandatory minimum wages and raising bonus ceiling and social security for workers. Arguing against Make in India, the unions called the government's flagship project an insult to the country's workforce as it shows them as cheap labour. The government played down the strike, saying it will not impact essential services. It also appealed to the unions to withdraw their call in the nation's interest.
Main demands are against the way in which government is trying to change the labour laws, against the workers to benefit the corporates. Contract labour should get minimum wage, pension for all. We have a 12-point charter on the basis of which we are going on strike tomorrow.
Meanwhile, in Delhi, the auto union is striking against the Delhi government's new taxi scheme under which small cars will be allowed to ply on the city's roads.
टैक्सी ना निकाले तो अच्छी बात है तो हम लोगों का ना गुजारा होता रहेगा चलता रहेगा वैसे तो भी बेरोजगार है गली गली में ऑटो खड़ा रहता है कहीं मिलती नहीं सवारी
काम नहीं है और ऐसे अगर वो 25,000 आ रहा है और 7 रुपये किलोमीटर चलाएंगे तो 8 रुपये किलोमीटर कोई सवारी कहाँ से बैठेगा
10 बजे के बाद जब ऑफिस टाइम होगा उस चीज़ के बारे में तब पता लगेगा ऑटो वाले के लिए ऑटो दिल्ली में मतलब जो मान्यता जरूरी है या ऑफिस वालों के लिए या ऐसे ही ऑटो वाले भी फालतू है एक तरह से
Meanwhile, in a bid to boost investor confidence, the government has decided not to levy minimum alternate tax on capital gains made by FIIs retrospectively. The decision will be carried out through an amendment to the Income Tax Act in the winter session of Parliament. Yes, Mo.
Today I have accepted on the recommendation of the CBDT and the Department of Revenue the report of the Justice AP Shah panel. Broadly, the report says that from the time of its statutory incorporation, the intention appeared to be, from the structure of the law, that the minimum alternative tax was not leviable on FIIs.
Finance Minister Arun Jaitley announcing the waiving of the controversial minimum alternate tax or MAT on capital gains made by foreign institutional investors on Monday. The announcement comes at a time when the capital markets are witnessing excessive volatility following the global financial turmoil that has led to FIIs pulling out funds from the emerging markets. The move to not levy MAT comes as a big relief to FIIs that pulled out more than 17,555 crore rupees from India during August. It also aims to settle the long-standing thorny issue that had shaken their confidence in the recent months. The decision will be carried out following an amendment to the Income Tax Act made in the winter session of Parliament.
We were of the considered opinion that the alternative cost suggested by the Justice Shah panel, which is the preferred course even according to them, that a necessary amendment in the provisions of Section 115JB of the Income Tax Act would be required. And we would be bringing out that amendment, hopefully in the winter session of Parliament, or whenever there is the next session of Parliament. We'll be able to bring out such an amendment expeditiously.
Tax experts have hailed the decision, calling it a bold step considering that it could prune government revenues. It is also expected to lead to higher foreign investment inflows into the country. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, stock markets saw another big slump on Tuesday, a day after the first quarter's GDP figures turned out to be less than expected. Weak global markets too weighed on sentiments, triggering heavy sell-offs. It wiped out over 2 crore lakh rupees from the investors' wealth. Sensex tanked nearly 600 points while the Nifty dropped below the 7,800 mark. Here's more.
Slower GDP growth in the first quarter of the current financial year and a jittery Asian market amid a weakening Chinese economy weighed heavily on the stock markets on Tuesday. Sensex and Nifty indices falling over 2%. At its day's low, Sensex fell over 700 points. It later recovered to end 587 points down. Nifty settled below the 2,800 mark.
जब भी ग्लोबल मार्केट्स इतने वोलाटाइल होते हैं और जब भी भारतीय बाजारों में गिरावट आती है विदेशी कारणों से, तो वो एक भरपूर मौका होता है खरीदारी करने का। मेरा ऐसा मानना है जो ब्लू चिप स्टॉक्स हैं, जिन सेक्टर्स में कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, जैसे आप देखें फार्मा सेक्टर हुआ, एफएमसीजी हुआ, आईटी स्पेस हुआ, बैंकिंग हुआ, जिसमें गिरावट देखने को मिल रही है और ग्लोबल वोलेटिलिटी के चलते, और एफआईज एक सेलर हैं। मेरे को लगता है एक लंबी अवधि का नजरिया बना के इन सेक्टर्स में निवेश करने का मौका है ये।
Asian shares also fell after surveys showed China's manufacturing sector in the grip of its worst slump in 3 years. The Shanghai Composite Index lost 1.3%, Japan's Nikkei closed nearly 4% lower, and the European stock markets also began on a weak note. Uncertainty over interest rates in the United States has also kept investors cautious. Rise in rate could further impact the global market, which is already grappling with the crisis in China. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Moving on now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is expected to attend a key RSS meet today in Delhi. Issues like census figures, Patel agitation, OROP may come up for discussion in the 3-day-long conclave starting today. The meeting, however, will not be the government's work or making any decisions. This would be the first time that Modi would be attending an RSS Baitak after becoming the Prime Minister. 93 main functionaries of the organization and its 15 affiliates, including the RSS chief Mohan Bhagwat, BJP party president Amit Shah and other BJP leaders would participate in the meeting and exchange notes on relevant issues. Starting today, the Baitak will conclude on September 4th. Moving on now, Vice President Hamid Ansari addressed a seminar to commemorate the Golden Jubilee of the 1965 India-Pakistan War on Tuesday, recalling the contributions of the then Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri and the Kashmiri people. He said that the war was the result of Pakistan's fallacious belief that it could use force to alter the geography and political realities of the subcontinent. He said that the war proved to be a costly military and political misadventure for Pakistan. Here's more.
Vice President Hamid Ansari remembering the gallantry and sacrifice of Indian soldiers in the 1965 Indo-Pak War. Addressing the Golden Jubilee commemoration of the war, the Vice President said purely bilateral conflicts are a thing of the past.
Purely bilateral wars are unlikely in our times. The decision to initiate hostilities may be an autonomous one. Due note of international opinion and of the balance of forces in the Security Council would need to be taken when considering conflict-like eventualities.
The increasing ceasefire violations over the last few months prompted the Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar and Army Chief Dalbir Singh Suhag to advise ceaseless vigilance to the armed forces.
The security environment today is complex and nuanced as compared to earlier times. We therefore need to be vigilant, taking into account all dimensions so that all emerging challenges are suitably addressed.
The swift, short nature of future wars are likely to offer limited warning time. This calls for maintaining very high levels of operational preparedness at all times.
The two-day seminar is attended by veterans of the 1965 wars. It is being organized by all the three wings of the armed forces. Navikram Singh's report for Rajya Sabha Television.
Here's a look now at some developments expected through the day in our segment The Day Ahead. A Delhi court will hear former Jharkhand Chief Minister Madhu Koda's plea seeking summoning of former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh as an accused in the coal scam which caused the Exchequer a loss of 1.86 lakh crore rupees. Former MP Naveen Jindal and others are also charge-sheeted by the CBI in the case. Australian Defence Minister Kevin Andrews will hold delegation-level talks and meet his Indian counterpart Manohar Parrikar today. Andrews met Prime Minister Narendra Modi and External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj on Tuesday and discussed ways to strengthen the Indo-Pacific partnership. UAE's Foreign Minister Abdullah bin Zayed Al Nahyan is leading an 80-member delegation on a two-day visit to India starting today. He, along with External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj, will co-chair a meeting of the India-UAE Joint Commission on Technical and Economic Cooperation. On the agenda would be bilateral issues such as trade, investment and cooperation in new areas including defence production and infrastructure. Let's shift focus now. The death toll in Manipur violence climbed up to 8 as 3 more were killed in police firing in Churachandpur district on Tuesday. The state government has blocked social networking site Facebook and messenger service WhatsApp after provocative remarks and pictures were uploaded and shared among internet users. The situation became tense within hours after the assembly passed a few contentious bills on Monday.
Indefinite curfew imposed in Manipur's Churachandpur district. Fresh violence on Tuesday saw security forces opening fire at protesters who attacked the police station. The clashes started barely hours after the state assembly passed 3 land bills on Monday. An angry mob set ablaze houses of State Health Minister and 5 MLAs. Minister of State for Home Kiran Rijiju said that the centre will send additional troops to control the situation.
We are monitoring the situation in Manipur. We have discussion with the officials of the Manipur state and we have got some requests for additional forces which we are ready to send. And it's very sad that so much of violence took place because of misunderstanding with the valley and hills people. So we hope the situation will come back to normal as soon as possible.
The situation should have been monitored properly by both. I don't mean only the state government, the union government also.
Protesters are agitating against the passage of Manipur Land Revenue and Land Reform Act Amendment Bill 2015. It gives non-tribals access to areas which were off limits to them now. With this, they fear tribals like Kukis and Nagas will end up losing their land.
The government brought a bill in the assembly and inner line permit bill was passed unanimously in the assembly yesterday. This is applicable only to the plain area, not to the tribal area. But the misinformation was given to the tribal people of Churachandpur by the underground, by the militant group, saying that it will affect the tribal area also.
The inner line permit is a government travel document to allow travel of any citizen into a protected area for a limited period. It is obligatory for citizens from outside that state to obtain permit for entering the protected area. In the last 3 years, Manipur has been witnessing violent protests over the implementation of inner line permit system. Protesters believe an influx of outsiders into the state has taken away jobs and land from the indigenous people. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, the flood situation in Assam is grim. 3 more people have died in the state in fresh downpours. The Brahmaputra and its tributaries are in spate. The threat of floods now looms on the Kaziranga National Park. Even in neighbouring West Bengal, the situation is worrying.
Over 8 lakh people have been affected in 18 districts in Assam as floods wreaked havoc due to incessant rains. The downpour has meant that the Brahmaputra and its tributaries are in spate. In Dibrugarh district, water entered camps of the Central Reserve Police Force.
रात 12:30 बजे से पानी घुसना धीरे धीरे आरंभ हुआ है और अभी तक पानी बढ़ते जा रहा है और हम लोग रात से 12:30 बजे से मतलब शुरू किया है सामान को दूसरे जगह शिफ्ट करने के लिए.
The deluge has so far claimed 25 lives. Dhemaji is the worst hit, with over 3.4 lakh persons suffering due to the floods. Rising water levels have also once again set alarm bells ringing for authorities at the Kaziranga National Park. Major swaths of land in the national park, famous for its one-horn rhino, had also been submerged in floodwaters. Authorities at the national park have started moving animals to higher places.
Several animals have already crossed over. We have placed a good number of patrolling staff, though we are running shortage of frontline staff. Nevertheless, we are pressing mobile patrol, including 2 new mobikes on the national highway, and we are alerting our eco-development committees also to come and join. And
in neighbouring Jalpaiguri in West Bengal too, the situation is similar. At least 100 villages in the district have been ravaged by the rains.
অতীতে এই ধরনের ঘটনা ঘটেনি কারণ নদীর গতিপথ সম্পূর্ণভাবে পরিবর্তন হয়ে গেছে। এই মুহূর্তে বন্যার যা গতি তাতে উদ্ধার কার্য ছাড়া ত্রাণ কার্য ছাড়া এইটার প্রোটেকশনের ব্যবস্থা এই মুহূর্তে করা সম্ভব নয়।
Teams of the National Disaster Response Force have been pressed into action. The latest round of floods comes just days after water had begun receding following the previous deluge. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, it's time now for a short break, but still to come, all the action from the US Open and other sports news. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hello and welcome to State of the Economy. Today we have a very special guest, Jairam Ramesh, former Union Minister, presently member of Rajya Sabha.
If the Prime Minister becomes an absentee landlord as far as Parliament is concerned, then I'm afraid Parliament does not have much hope in this country. All political parties overpromise, but this government came to power more than the quota of usual overpromises, which they have not been able to fulfill.
Watch senior Congress leader Jairam Ramesh articulate on politics of reforms in the State of the Economy on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Well, India ended a 22-year-long drought of a win over Sri Lanka on their soil as they claimed their first Test series win with an emphatic 117-run victory over the hosts in the third and final Test. Indian bowlers managed to wind up the gritty Sri Lankan side with the second new ball after tea on the last day of the Test. This was also India's first away Test series win since 2011. Here's more.
The sign that India won this Test match.
India ended a 22-year-old long drought of a win over Sri Lanka on their soil as they claimed their first Test series win with an emphatic 117-run victory over the hosts in the third and final cricket test in Colombo. Indian bowlers managed to wind up the gritty Lankan side with the second new ball after tea on the last day of the test. After setting a big target of 386, the visitors wrapped up the Sri Lankan innings at 268. But not before Captain Angelo Matthews' 110 runs and debutant Kushal Perera's 70 gave the Indians a scare with a 135-run partnership, the second highest stand in the fourth innings in Sri Lanka's Test history. But it failed to change the writing on the wall.
We need a top order to fire, to be honest. But chasing 385, we could have chased it down if we had a good start. We kept losing wickets. We lost 3 wickets for 20 runs, and it was a little too much for us, for the middle order players to go out there and score that 385.
Off-spinner R. Ashwin was the pick of the Indian bowlers with 4 for 69, while paceman Ishant Sharma scalped 3 for 32. Umesh Yadav chipped in with 2 for 65. When Ashwin induced a false shot from Perera just before the second new ball was due, floodgates opened and the tail failed to wag for the hosts, who wrapped up the series 2-1. This is the first ever Test series win for Virat Kohli after he took over captaincy last year.
We believed that we can turn the series around because the way we lost in Galle
was because we played bad cricket in 2 sessions and we won 6 sessions there. So there was a lot of positive to take from that game, and we focused on that rather than the bad cricket that we played. So I think it took a lot of effort from all the guys to stay positive and turn things around, which we believe we could do. And I think me and Ashwin are sitting here talking about winning the series because of that belief that we had even after losing the first game, and I think that's very, very important.
Cheteshwar Pujara's comeback knock of 145 not out in the first innings earned him the Man of the Match award, while Ashwin won the Man of the Series after picking 21 wickets in the 3 tests. However, Ishant Sharma has been suspended for 1 test on disciplinary grounds after his on-field spat with Sri Lankan players on the 4th day. Dinesh Chandimal too was handed 1 match suspension, while Tirimani and Dhamika Prasad were fined 50% of their match fees. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, joining me for a chat this morning to talk about the emphatic series win in Sri Lanka is Jaideep Ghosh, senior sports journalist. Thank you so much, Jaideep, for joining me on the program.
Pleasure.
An emphatic win for India, first time in 22 years that they won a series on Sri Lankan soil. What do you think were the main takeaways?
The main takeaway, according to me, is that we have come to a position where we think that we can go in with 5 bowlers and still win test matches, which was something that I don't think many captains have really followed over the last 22 years, let's start with. We've always been in a situation where we have gone in with 6 batsmen, 4 bowlers, 1 wicket-keeper, which has made it a little bit of a situation in terms of taking wickets. And Virat Kohli, before the series, had said that the key to winning any test match, for that matter, is taking 20 wickets in the match, which is something that the Indians managed thrice. Ideally, they should have won 3-0, but that's all right. I mean, it happens. So I think the main takeaway was that you have to have 5 batsmen who will be given the responsibility and who will live up to it. And then you have 5 bowlers who are going to get you those 20 wickets, which is the only way to win a test match. You might score 1,000 runs as long as you are left with even 1 wicket to take. The match is going to be a draw or a loss.
Are you happy with the makeup of the present team right now? Do you think any tweaks need to be made?
I think it's not an ideal situation in terms of the batting, more so because it's not the combination as such, it's the form of the batsman really. I mean, you've had batsmen who've scored centuries and then in the next match they've gone down and, single figure scores or very low 20s, which is not good enough because, see, if you have a situation where one batsman is in good form, then that form has to capitalize into something really big, getting a 50 or a 60 and then getting out, or even lesser, getting 30 runs.
More so when you're playing with just 5 batsmen, isn't it?
Exactly that, because you have only 5 batsmen who have to go and take this responsibility. So the combination can be tweaked a little bit. I think ideally you should have more deliverance from the batsmen in terms of, if they're not in bad form. Nobody was in bad form really. Everybody got hundreds. Rahane got 100.
Yes.
Kohli got 100. Pujara got 100. Lots of centuries. Rahul got 100.
Shikhar Dhawan also got 100.
Dhawan got injured, so he was out of the scene. But the guys who got the rest of the hundreds, nobody followed up with another 100 as such. So it was a situation where you're getting 1 good score and then you're going down the order. So essentially the win was largely thanks to the bowling. The batting needs a little bit of work, especially against an attack which might be a little stronger than the Sri Lankans.
Were you surprised when Cheteshwar Pujara was left out of the team, earlier in the earlier part of the series?
I think Pujara has had a little bit of a raw deal in terms of the kind of exposure he should have got. I mean, you have Rohit Sharma who's playing Test cricket, who honestly, even now, I don't think should be playing Test cricket at all. And that being said, then you could have, you've pushed Rahane up the order and he struggled a little bit as number 3. He's not a number 3. Neither is Rohit Sharma.
Yes.
So if you're not going to use Pujara as an opener, you can might as well utilize him as a number 3. Maybe he'll be a very good number 3 according to me. And given the kind of opening stands we've had, we always had one opener going early. So, yeah, I mean, I think Pujara should have got some more chances, not just here, even earlier. But then again, in Indian cricket, it's always been that some players have not always got the best deals.
Indeed. Now, let's talk about Sri Lankan cricket for the time being. Sangakkara not playing Test cricket anymore. There's a void that needs to be filled as far as Sri Lanka is concerned. And they're going through a rebuilding phase now, aren't they?
Yeah, well, every team has this transition. The Australians, if you recall, a couple of years ago, people were wondering what happens to Australian cricket now, because so many players left together. You had Gilchrist, Vaughan, McGrath, Hayden, you name it. I mean,
almost the entire team.
The best 11 practically of world cricket left practically within 2 years. But then again, they had an assembly line which was up to the mark and which was up to the job. Sri Lankan cricket, I think it's a little bit of a feudal setup like we have in India, where the old, the established players or the great players, I mean, there's no doubt Sangakkara was a great player. But I don't think they have prepared for the, for the gap that has come in with the, going of Jayawardene and Sangakkara almost together. So they are struggling a little bit. Murli's departure has affected the fast bowling. Then you had Chaminda go before that. I don't think the transition has been very seamless, which is what is being shown. Series against Pakistan didn't go too well. Series against India has not gone well. But I guess you have to give them a little bit of a break. I mean, they have practically been unbeatable over the last 20 odd years by any team for that matter in Sri Lanka. So I guess that is a little bit of a, a downer for them. But I think they'll come up to be a pretty competitive side pretty soon.
Indeed. All right. We'll have to leave it to that. Thank you so much, Jaydeep, for joining us on the program in the morning and putting things into perspective for us. Now, the second day of the US Open tournament started just like the first, with top seeds facing early exits in the Open at Flushing Meadows. In the women's draw, 6-seeded Lucy Safarova joined the US Open seeds casualty list as she lost a 6-4, 6-1 to 37th ranked Lesia Sorenko in just 65 minutes. While 7-seeded Anna Ivanovic, 8-seeded Carolina Pliskova and 10-seeded Carla Suarez Navarro were also eliminated. World number 2 Simona Halep avoided the upsets when she reached the second round after her New Zealand opponent Marina Erakovic retired due to a knee injury. Meanwhile, in the men's draw, second seed Roger Federer raced past Argentina's Leonardo Maya in 77 minutes to reach the second round. The five-time champion won 6-1, 6-2, 6-2 on a hot afternoon in New York. Meanwhile, fifth-seeded Stan Wawrinka also claimed the second-round berth with a 7-5, 6-4, 7-6 victory over Albert Ramos Vinolas. American Donald Young rallied from 2 sets down for the first time in his career as he upset 11th seed Giles Simon 2-6, 4-6, 6-4, 6-4, 6-4 in 3 hours and 34 minutes. 6th seed Thomas Berdych made light work of American Bjorn Fratangolo in the first round of the US Open, claiming a 6-3, 6-2, 6-4 victory in 1 hour and 41 minutes.
I had a good start. I played my best tennis today, and I tried just to be aggressive, to believe that I play a good game because I had some good results. So I was enjoying a lot playing my first round.
A good start. He was a bit shaky in the beginning. I think then it was somewhat close in the beginning of the second. And then when I got the break there, I don't know, his level dropped. But I was very happy. My serve got better and better as the match went on, and conditions are fast. So I was trying to play fast court tennis, and it worked very well today.
Moving on to some international news now, the migrant crisis in the EU is getting more difficult to handle for the countries they are seeking refuge in. In the latest, hundreds of migrants are stranded at a major railway station in the Hungarian capital Budapest. Police there sealed off the terminal to stop them travelling through the EU. In their defence, they have said that they are trying to enforce EU law. Migrants are seeking refuge in the EU countries fleeing war and persecution. But this means movement of people is posing serious challenges to EU constituents who are engaged in talks to find a lasting solution. With the rising numbers, Italy and Greece have put their foot down, saying that they can't cope. This has meant that most of these people are now heading towards Germany. And for some more international news, here's our World Wrap. Guatemala's Congress voted unanimously on Tuesday to strip President Otto Perez of immunity. The move paves the way for prosecutors to charge Perez in a graft scandal that could lead to his ouster just days before the presidential election. Following the vote, Perez cannot run for re-election under the Constitution. Perez has denied any wrongdoing and refused to step aside. South Africa's parliament has rejected investigating President Jacob Zuma for possible impeachment for allowing Sudanese President Omar Hassan al-Bashir to evade an arrest warrant and leave the country in June. The motion, moved by head of the opposition Democratic Alliance, was defeated by 211 votes against 100 in favour. That's it on this edition of the Breakfast News. Have a nice day.